Hey, what's up everybody? It's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and I am covering something a little bit different for my channel, but it's still audio related. Now, half of you might be here just because of the VU meter, and that's what got me excited, because if you're an audio person, seeing those little needles bounce back and forth is always kind of fun to look at. But there's a few reasons why I wanted to cover this particular product. Now, before I proceed, this was sent to me by the company. I'm going to go with Neohipo. I don't know how to pronounce it. It could be Neohipo. But this is the ET30, and it sells for $160. As always, it won't affect what I say about it, but I will have purchase links in the description below. Just generic Amazon links. I have no kickbacks with the company, so purchase it however you like. I don't make these reviews to maximize profits or anything. I just like covering stuff and explaining my own take on things. So the big reason why I wanted to get this box wasn't just the VU, it's because I'm growing the channel this year, and I've always wanted to cover more audiophile stuff, the big speakers, the amps, turntables, you name it. And I didn't feel like my studio or living room were prepped properly to provide the level of quality that I strive for. A big part of that is it's really hard to explain the difference of an amp and test the difference of an amp, if there is one, or DAC, whatever it may be, without having a very fast, seamless switch for an A/B test. This box accomplishes that, and that's part of why I wanted to cover it. Now, if you have two sets of speakers or two amplifiers or a combination of both, this box is a great unit to consider. Now, on the measurement side, if you're concerned with how this impacts sound quality, well, it doesn't. Audio Science Review, actually Amir from Audio Science Review measured this, and it had no measurable effect on the sound quality, so you don't have to worry about ruining your source chain. If you have a pretty high-end speaker and amp setup, don't feel like adding this is going to ruin that. The terminals are rated to handle quite a bit of pass-through power. This isn't amplifying your signal at all. It's just a pass-through switch box, but it does 2 times 200 at 4 ohms and 2 times 300 watts at 2 ohms for full pass-through. If you're going to that level of power and beyond, then you probably aren't going to be considering a switch box anyway. But even if you have an amp that is capable of 400 watts, for example, something extreme, it's not like you're turning it up to that level all the time. You can still use something like this, just don't exceed that power limit, or at least it's not rated to. As far as the general layout goes, it's pretty straightforward on the front. You have 2 VU meters, which has a yellow tint on the back, and that does affect the RGB performance, especially if you're looking for a bright blue. Doesn't quite get there, but it does use USB-C on the back. That is going to power the device. Now again, it's not powering your speaker signal in any way. The power is for the VU meter and for the relay system to switch from A to B on your amp, or 1 to 2 for your speaker selection. We have a dim little red light here, so when you press it, basically instantly switches from left to right, and you'll see the red light bounce back and forth. The same with the speaker. Now the center knob adjusts your brightness. If you press it several times, you have like 4 or 5 stages of brightness, including off, and then when it's on, if you rotate the knob, that's going to change your RGB color. Then you have the swing range and the sensitivity for the VU meter. Now there are a couple things here that you can't do on the device. You have to use the remote for, so do not lose the remote. I'll show you that layout, but the swing range is pretty self-explanatory. For any given signal, if you increase the range, even at lower volumes, it's going to help the needles move more. So this, basically, the sensitivity and the swing range is how you dial in how much motion you have on the needles depending on what volume you're listening to. Now on the back of the unit, you have 8 pairs of binding posts, because again, it supports 2 amplifiers and 2 speakers. You don't have to use all of them, but if you have, let's say, 2 amps and 1 pair of speakers, then you're only going to use 6 pairs here. So they do support banana plugs, and then they unscrew, and you can install rather large wire. I was using a mix of 12 and 10 gauge just because I had a little bit longer distance for my audio setup, but I was just using banana plugs on the back. This has a little bit of weight, but it's not crazy heavy, so if you have this towards the back of a stand or a rack and all of those wires are hanging on the back, it could pull it up or slide it back a little bit, so just keep that in mind for how you place your wires in case they are heavy. You can see the little microphone input there, and there's the USB-C jack on the bottom. It doesn't come with like a power brick or anything, but you can hook up the USB cable to any reasonable power source, and then of course rubber feet on the bottom. And this is a metal case, which is quite nice. Again, it's got some heft to it, but overall it's built pretty solid. As far as the remote control goes, you have a power button, which ironically does not exist on the unit itself. Pressing that will turn the VU meters on and off, as well as the status lights for the switch. You have mic mode. If you press that, it uses the internal mic instead of the speaker signal to adjust your VU meter. And then this is all for RGB. You have the up and down for your brightness. You have the left and right for mode and color. And then if you go further down, your primary function are the A, B, and the 1, 2. I wish it said like amp and speaker, something to make it easier to remember. Once you get used to it, A, B is your amp and 1 and 2 is your speaker. So at least it's not A, B, A, B. So that helps. MD is effectively changing how fast the needles on the VU meter return to 0. So it's kind of like a speed adjustment. And then these two bottom buttons, it's literally YE for yellow and GN for green to instantly hit that VU meter color. For some reason they picked those. It's nothing else you can do with the button. But otherwise it's pretty straightforward. It uses 2 AAA batteries, which weren't included in the box, at least on my unit. I had to use my own. Not a big deal, but I want to point that out. Now, as far as performance goes, yes, it does not make an impact on my signal. And this opened up a whole new world for my speaker reviews because now I can actually demo if there is a difference between amps and speakers. Maybe you have a home theater receiver that you use for all your movie watching and TV use on really nice speakers, but then later you want to use a really good 2-channel integrated amp or some other hybrid amp for your music listening. Maybe it's a whole separate rack connected for your turntable and you have just one pair of nice speakers. Well, this is the kind of box you would get because then you can use your really nice speakers for your living room, everyday TV watching, and then flip a button to get into music mode. So there's a lot of use cases for this. I'm not going to cover every single one. You probably know what you're looking for if you're interested in this, but the difference in what this helps me identify is absolutely massive. First off, the switching performance is pretty much instantaneous. I had no delay whether I was using the button or the remote. The remote also doesn't have any crosstalk issues with Samsung, LG, or Sony TVs, so at least it's using an infrared code that doesn't interfere with my other stuff. That's a big win. But I was able to go back and forth with no real massive pop. There's a little bit of a click. I think that's more from the signal becoming live. And I did switch back and forth at higher volumes once I matched my amps to each other. No issues there. Now I'm trying something different. So if you have headphones or earbuds or IMs, whatever you can use, don't watch this part on a cell phone and expect to hear the difference. But I use 2 high quality Audio-Technica shotgun mics connected to an XLR audio recorder pointed at the pairs of speakers, and then I toggled back and forth between the amps and the speakers so you can actually hear the performance. And depending on what you're listening to it on, you might actually hear a difference yourself. So with that being said, I want to show you how this performs. That's pretty wild stuff, right? Even on the camera, depending on what you're listening to it on, I think you can hear the difference. Now, I did not want to tell you which amp or speaker you were listening to. One was the Yamaha NS600A speaker, and then the other was the Alta Audio Alyssa speaker. And then for the amps, I was using the integrated Yamaha amplifier I covered in the past, as well as the Vincent Audio SV237 Mark II. So I wanted to cover this review first because that is what helps me A/B properly all of these speakers and amps. It's going to make a big difference for the future of this channel, and that's a big reason why I decided to cover it. There's a lot of customization you can do with this thing. There's 34 RGB colors, so you can toggle them to pretty much fit your decor, or you can turn them off completely. And as you can tell, the performance was pretty seamless. So this is kicking off a whole new chapter for the channel. I'm still going to be covering gaming audio, IEMs, headphones, you name it. But this is going to open up a lot of good doors, and I can't wait to show you a lot of stuff I've been working on. So with that being said, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'd love to see you at the next one. With that being said, stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time.